Okay, everyone, and welcome. I am so excited to have my brother here, Mr. Clapp from the Clapp Group. As you all know, this is our Housing for All, our weekly sort of check in where we share resources, where we're talking about not only do we ensure that we have ownership over our blocks, but Mr. Clapp and I met, Lord, I don't know. The time goes by so fast, but I want to say just a few weeks ago.
It's almost been a month, believe it.
It's almost been a
Yeah.
month. And we had some interesting conversation around, yeah, home ownership is great, real estate is awesome, but let's start thinking about how we can actually invest in commercial real estate, how businesses can invest in real estate to provide opportunities for themselves and for the community. And it really just kind of blew my mind. Obviously, you know these kinds of things, but to actually have it stated and to have an expert here who can talk about the resources about Housing for All. This is the point of Housing for All campaign. It's about us empowering ourselves to build our generational wealth, to buy our blocks, to create our own opportunities. We know in the United States that land ownership, property ownership is by far the number one way to create wealth in this country, period. And so that's why it's so important that we understand all the ways that we can get into the game, that we can own our real estate, both as on a personal level, but today is really going to be about how we can own our real estate from a commercial level. So, Brother Clapp, before we get into it, can you just do an introduction as to the Clapp Group, who you are, what you bring to the table, and then we're going to get into the nitty gritty.
I can definitely do that. And thank you so much for having me today. My name is Eugene Clapp, and I am the founder of the Clapp Group. And at the Clapp Group, what we do is we help business owners and commercial real estate developers survive, grow, and thrive by helping them secure the funding to funds and also other business services that may be only available for the big boys, but now we are able to help the small business owner and the smaller commercial real estate developer access these services. And I want to talk about some things. Last night I was at the Overtown Business Association meeting,
Mm.
and we were talking about some things, and business owners were there, and I got to thinking about how almost every major city in the United States started. And most of the time, there is a body of water around a major city. So it can be either a port or it's a river. So goods could be shipped up and down. And in order for the city to get started, you have that body of water. Then you have to build the infrastructure. So that means the first residents that come into any city that's being built are business people.
Mm.
The business people need a place to stay because they're doing what? They're doing business and they're building. So then next comes the homes. And somewhere along the lines, I think because we have become so advanced, we've forgotten that process and that order where it's business first and homes second.
Hmm.
Now, when we look at our diaspora has been taught not to be owners. We've been taught to rely on social programs,
That's right.
even in businesses. And I asked this question last night because there was a lot of business owners in the house. And I asked them about the Creole Grant. Now, the Creole Grant had been running for about 3 years. It's expired now. But I asked by a show of hands how many of them had applied for the Creole Grant. Not one hand went up. And these grants are out there to help small businesses come together collectively and purchase real estate and have ownership. So when we start to look at the different social programs,
Hmm.
the buzzword right now is grant, the buzzwords are LLC, and it's good. But a LLC, just to have one, is not going to do anything for you. Also, LLC may not be the best business structure
That's right.
entity for what you're trying to do. Grants, whereas grants are good, what we find that typically is the amount of the grants that our small businesses get is in between $5,000 and $10,000.
Right.
Now, anybody who's in business, we know that $5,000 and $10,000 can disappear just like that. You have a marketing campaign that's a good marketing campaign, that can be over 10 grand right there. If you got to buy a piece of equipment, that may just be a down payment on a piece of equipment. So we know we have to have access to other forms of capital.
Yeah.
And when it comes to real estate, we have to understand that it's not enough for us to have our businesses within a commercial building where we're renting out the space. I preach to business owners now, if you're thinking about doing that, why not think about owning the building? See, because, yeah, you know,
yeah, I'm just going to pop in here just for a second because I think this is such a crucial point around owning not just the business, but the actual physical structure of which the business is located, i.e., owning the building.
Exactly.
And as some of you may know who know me, know that my mother and I opened up a co-working venue space in Hollywood, Florida. I believe one of the few Black-owned and certainly family-owned, woman-owned. But what was so important to us was the land ownership of the building. So people are like, "What can you do here?" I said, "I can do anything." That's what's within the zone because we own this building. And as we build out the brand for JT Workspace, I'm going to put a little shout out there. JT Workspace, come check it out. 1123 South 21st Avenue in Hollywood. What is just kind of like amazing about that story is as we build out the brand, JT Workspace, and you have got this brand that you've built, let's say 5, 10, 15, 20 years, 25, etc. And then all of a sudden your landlord says, "I'm selling the building," or "I need this space." Then you've got to start all over from scratch somewhere else. And you've put in so much real estate, you put in so much earning in real estate into something that you don't actually own. And you are beholden. It's the same thing with renting anything. You're beholden to the person who actually owns the property. And so I 100% agree with you. I believe in walking the talk. So anything I talk about, generally speaking, we have done either myself or as an entire family in terms of what we are talking about so that we can be showing and proving that this works and this is the way to be. So let's talk a little bit about commercial real estate. You mentioned in one of our conversations that it is actually much easier to get a commercial real estate loan through a business than actually going and getting a homeowner loan. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I want to give you two words and I'm going to read some stuff to you because I want to break it down to its lowest terms. When you start talking about buying real estate, you have two types of real estate. You have recourse and you have non-recourse. Now, a lot of people ask me, what does that mean? Recourse real estate, when you start to talk about it, it is a loan is typically for a project that's under construction for many permanent short-term financing needed by the developer to pay off construction projects or commercial properties before they become profitable. Non-recourse loans with commercial real estate is usually for stable income producing properties where repayment of the loan will be from rental or lease income. Now, why is this important when we talk about commercial real estate? We see strip malls all around. We see mixed use properties with the stores at the bottom and the apartments or the townhomes on top. These are non-recourse because you have a rent roll if you buy these buildings. So you have income coming in. Now, with a non-recourse deal, and it's very hard to get them from the banks now unless you're stable. However, a rent roll and having that asset as collateral, that is non-recourse. And it's important to you as a business owner who may be thinking about going into commercial real estate development or investing to try to get non-recourse, because let's say, lo and behold, something happens and you're not able to fulfill your end of the bargain. The only thing that can be taken from you is that building. They cannot go after any other assets with non-recourse. So that means you have to come from a position of strength when you're looking for non-recourse. And what you said about being easier to get than residential, I had a conversation last night with one of the individuals after we had the meeting. And he was coming up to me, and I hear it all the time, selling me their business and how much this business means to them. And I had to stop him. I said, listen, I understand that's your business. I understand it means a lot to you. But as a funding source, it means nothing to me. And he looked at me a little bewildered, but in the world of finance, in the world of commercial funding, there are no emotional attachments like there are in residential. There are no emotional attachments like it is for a person who starts a business and it's their baby and they nurture it and see it grow. The only thing we're concerned about with commercial lending is, number one, how's the property? Number two, is the rent roll? Number three, can we make a return on our investment? And number four, do you have the required documentation that we need? And the mere fact it's cut and dry like that, that means the processes a lot of time are cut and dry. It's not a lot of red tape, not a lot of rigmarole that has to be gone through to get in commercial property. Because you think about it, these lenders already have an asset that's right there. They have the building. Now, when we start talking about what's going on in the United States right now, we understand it's an election year. And we understand now that the Fed today, the Fed was supposed to talk about cutting rates by 0.5 point. Now, people say, oh, that's going to be a boom time for residential real estate. You know, the price is going to, the interest rate is going to go down, inventory is going to go up. Well, in commercial real estate, it's a little different. Will it have some effect? Yes, it'll have some effect. But we look at other things that are going on. We look at what's been going on with mixed-use property, what's going on with commercial buildings. And it's slightly different, the effect it is going to have on these commercial properties. But if you are a business owner, or if you're a person who actually is getting into real estate investing, I would encourage you to look at becoming an owner, because once you become an owner of commercial real estate, you can directly and indirectly dictate what goes on in your community, the type of businesses that are there, the type of government assistance you can get from your local and state government, as well as national, and also the quality of residents who you want to live in your neighborhood. So this is why we say that getting commercial real estate is more important in the stopping gentrification as opposed to getting the residential real estate, because he who controls the gold, she who controls the gold wins. Don't let anybody tell you anything differently. So when you control real estate businesses, you control the whole shebang.
Okay, now, I love that. So he who controls the gold controls it all. And that it's so important for us to think about the commercial real estate aspect. You mentioned having the proper documents and requirements. And this is something that unfortunately happens to a lot of small businesses. We don't take care of our foundation. We don't take care of making sure that we have proper paperwork. If you could just quickly kind of go through what are some of the essential pieces of paperwork that most commercial loans are asking for, so that people can get themselves prepared for this step.
Okay, well, that's pretty easy. What they're looking for, number one, believe it or not, most of these commercial lenders, if they're a boutique lender, only looking for 2 to 3 months bank statements. They're looking for the rent rolls, if it is a building that is occupied. They're looking to see if you have environmentals, if it's some kind of thing like a gas station or something like that. They want to see the environmentals and make sure you have that in place. They're also looking for you as a business entity. I mean, what are you registered as your, are you subchapter S or your LLC? They look for experience too. And I have a lot of people who say, oh, I don't have the experience. Well, there's a little something we call JV, which is joint venture. And this is a good way for you to get your foot in the door. So what you do, if you're a person that may not have an experience, but you want to get involved in this, you find somebody and you partner with them initially who have the experience, because then you're going on their reputation and you're able to get inside of this. And pretty much that, along with a credit score that may be north of 650, because that's about the cutoff limit that you're going to have with commercial property is 650. Okay. And at least you're in the game, and at least you'll know what's going on. But then you got to figure out what you want to do. I mean, do you want to do business acquisitions, which is something that not a lot of us take advantage of? And we need to take advantage of it, because you do have a lot of business owners who are in dire straits because of COVID, and they want an exit strategy. And you're able to get funds for business acquisitions. And a lot of time that not only includes the business, you can also pair that with getting funds to buy the facility or the building, if it is in fact for sale.
Clapp. Okay, let's talk about this, because I wasn't even thinking about this, but I do think business acquisition is another piece that we oftentimes miss. And so want to talk a little bit more. If someone is like, man, I'm having a light bulb moment talking, and I want to start thinking about what is it like to do business acquisition, what are some tips that you would give to that person? And I love the fact that you also said that you could actually pair it with commercial real estate. So I'm assuming you're saying that we can get funding for both an acquisition of business and the commercial real estate in which they reside.
Correct. Correct. I am saying that, I'm going to give you an example. Day before yesterday, I had a meeting with a beautiful lady. I mean, very nice. She and I met at a Chase Bank function almost a year ago. And she had a situation where both of the parents passed away, and they had an auto repair shop. Still have it. It sits there. She wants to keep it. However, there are some encumbrances that have happened because both of the parents were sick at the same time. And that gets to be expensive. Yeah. So some things have to kind of fall by the wayside, and you have to take care of what's most important to you. So what happened, the actual property is going into foreclosure. And when I met with her, it was 7 days away from auction. Okay. Now, she found my card kind of late, and I told her, I said, we're in the 12th hour right now. I'm not sure if I can help you with this deal. So I put her in touch with somebody who may be able to help her with the deal. But when you see deals like that, if they're not in the 12th hour, those are sweetheart deals for business acquisition. You may have parents who died. You may have a business there. You may have a business where the children don't want to inherit. The person is getting older, and they're looking for somebody to acquire the business. And a lot of times, if you keep the same name, it's easier to get funding because that business still has the same name and it's recognized. This particular business I'm talking about has been in the community for 40 plus years, and they're grandfathered in. So all the building and everything going on around, they're pretty much immune from that because they're grandfathered in. They had been there so long. And these are the things you do. And with business acquisitions, they just want to make sure that your financials are healthy. They want to make sure that the business is profitable, and you can go ahead and acquire these businesses. And once you get in there, let's say that you need, okay, I want a loan to buy this property. Now you got an income producing asset, and you can get the loan, and the loan's going to be what? Non-recourse.
Wow. Okay. So, Clapp, you are saying so many things. I want to go into them. I want to swing back to something else that you said, which is if you own the commercial real estate in a community, you can sort of directly and indirectly affect how that community grows, prospers. Can we talk a little bit more about that effect? Because I think that that's something that also gets lost in the sauce and is hardly ever talked about.
Yeah, yeah, we can go into it. We can go into how it dictates everything. For those of you who don't know, I'm from Miami, Florida. Born and raised in Miami, still live in Cutler Bay, which is in Miami-Dade County. And I've seen a lot of change in my 55 years. But I can tell you when I was in my 30s that an election came up.
Mm.
And in the city of Miami, Miami-Dade County, which is a part of Florida, which is a part of the United States, we had to vote to keep the official language of Miami-Dade County English because they wanted to change it to Spanish.
Hmm.
Now, when I tell people from other states and other counties in Florida that this happened, they're like, that can't happen. This is in the United States. I say, yes, it can. I say, because you have to think about the power structure and how things work. And I want you to think about the communities we have that are not African American communities. Let's think about communities we have where they're mostly Spanish, or let's think about communities where there are a lot of Jewish. Let's think about communities we have with a lot of Orientals. In those communities, you have businesses that cater to who? If it's a Spanish community, they cater to the Hispanic population. If it's an Oriental community,
So
they cater to the
we say
yeah,
Asian.
yeah. I'm sorry, the Asian community. Yeah, you're right. To get me right, the Asian community, they actually cater to the Asian population. If it's a Jewish community, they cater to the Jewish community. And what happens when they do this? The dollar, the economic power grows exponentially because the dollars circulate throughout those communities 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 times before it gets out, because they have commercial buildings with businesses with their people who sell and cater to their people in the community. So guess what? The people want to move there. It's Shangri-La. When you think about our diaspora and you think about the communities we don't really have communities, we have neighborhoods.
Mm.
Because the communities that we did have, we got disenfranchised because anytime there has to be eminent domain for a highway or for something else to be built, they take it through our communities.
That's right.
Down here in Miami-Dade County, Overtown was a bustling community. You think about when Miami was chartered in 1896, 1/3 of the signatures on that charter were Black men who were helping to work and build Miami-Dade County, and it was two places they could live. They could live in Overtown, and they could live in what was called Lemon City, which is now Little Haiti.
Mm.
This is where they could live. So they couldn't go anywhere else. It was segregated, which means everything had to be in the community. So you had your doctor's offices in your community. You had your Black police precincts. You had your schools. Your teachers lived there. Your preachers lived there. Your business owners. You had your dry cleaners. You had everything you needed to be self-sufficient in the community. So you did not have a neighborhood. You had an actual community. Now, since we don't have that, our dollars don't circulate 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 times. They did a study and they said the average dollar in the African American community circulates only 6 hours before it's out the community. So when you ask why do we need these businesses and why do we need ownership in our community? We need it so we can cater to our diaspora with the things that we want. But in doing that too, you got to realize this is now 2024 and the world has become a very small place because of social media. So you can cater to your diaspora, but you have to have something of value that attracts others like a moth to a flame to do business with you. So these buildings that we're going to start buying commercially will house businesses that not only cater to us, but also businesses that cater to what the population needs: banks, real estate offices, mortgage offices, things of that nature where it doesn't see color. It
Since
caters to everybody.
We are doing the Housing for All, and obviously this is related a little to the campaigning that's going on, and we know about the national election. But you bring up an important point about ensuring that you understand what's going on locally, and then in fact that our local elections, I would argue, are probably our most important elections
Most
for
important.
us to get involved in. And you also sat on the panel when we talked with representative from Broward County around understanding what's going on with the local politics and how that affects the ways that you
Mhm.
can make money as a business. So when we're talking about commercial real estate, commercial ownership, entrepreneurship, and the relationship with government, can you just get a little bit more in depth there? I mean, obviously there's some influence around who our politicians are, who you're going to support, but also there's influence around the policies that get put into place. And oftentimes those policies will have funding behind it that can then get distributed to um, uh, organizations that
Sure,
can cater
sure.
to the community.
Yeah, when you start talking about nationally, we have something called the MBDA, which is the Minority Business Development Association. And you have many chapters throughout your cities. And this is a national program. They know what's going on nationally and how the dollars can be bequeathed to you. When you think about your larger cities, I'm going to tell you about Miami-Dade and Broward County. In Miami-Dade, we have MD. Okay, MD is the Miami Development Economic Advocacy Trust. That's MD. And then in Broward County, you have the Office of Economic Small Business Development, and that's called what? OSAB. You did that acronym. So you have two individuals at the helm. With MD, you have Mr. Bill Diggs,
Right.
and then with the Broward County Office of Economic and Small Business Development, you have Sandy Michael McDonald. They are very knowledgeable in doing business. They're very knowledgeable in knowing what can be bequeathed as far as funding is concerned. And these are all resources you have to know about, because not only is this business fund, but it also affects real estate too. I mean, we were on the panel and Sandy was on the panel and he was talking about what is going on with the airport there in Broward County and how so many percentages of dollars and work has to be allocated to minority firms,
That's right.
namely African American firms. When you think about the example that was given about Atlanta with what Mayor Jackson did before he got off, and we'll probably never see done again, and how it was set up to make sure that those minority firms got contracts, and it's still going on today. That was a shrewd business model and a much needed business model. And look at what has happened to Atlanta.
That's right.
Atlanta is called Chocolate City. Now, everybody thinking they want to be successful, they can go to Atlanta. We know that ain't the case, but still, you got to have a little something on the ball if you move there. But at least the infrastructure was built. Business friendly to minority business owners,
Right.
started owning real estate, started owning buildings. People want to move there. They do what? They buy residential real estate, and you have a strong African American community, not a neighborhood.
Mm.
So, yeah, so you got to find out what's going on with these organizations locally. And you look them up. See the community development organizations, the CRA. I mean, just look, Google it. You got it right there. You got everything you need in front of you. Go. Organizations that help with commercial real estate funding. Boom. Everything will pop up. Organizations that help with business funding. Boom. Everything will pop up. So there are no excuses. I think sometimes too, we're scared of debt.
Mm.
And if you're a business owner or you're trying to buy commercial real estate, debt is your friend.
It is.
Because there are two types of debt. There's bad debt, which is consumer debt, which is what everybody thinks about. And then there's the good debt where you're actually buying an asset which you can go and build up and actually earn more money. Every other ethnicity has figured this out. We still haven't figured it out because we still look at things, for the most part, from a consumer's point of view.
That's right. I mean, we do have, unfortunately, a consumer mindset. And so part of
We
housing
do.
all is to try to shift the mindset to a much more ownership mindset.
Mhm.
And the Atlanta story is so fascinating, right? Because I mean, we're in 2024. We've seen Atlanta being built now for 30 plus years. Everyone thinks of Atlanta, to your point, as Chocolate City, as a very successful Black community, and wonders why it cannot be done in other places. But then what they don't know is the policies that were put in place, the structure
Exactly.
that was put in
Exactly.
place to ensure that the Black businesses would be able to flourish and would be able to um, uh, grow with the community. And so when we're seeing things like gentrification happening to our neighborhoods, where we're seeing, of course, this displacement, the disownership, if we even owned anything in the first place over there, I think that's another problem, right? We oftentimes just let things go for lots of reasons. We can't pay the taxes, we can't do X, Y, Z, but there are resources. This is why you need to know who your local politicians are, what are the policies.
Exactly.
There are resources that are there to help you keep your property, that are there to
Mhm.
help you keep your business alive, help you keep your commercial real estate alive. So, can you talk? I mean, you are Mr. Money Guy for
Yeah,
business.
what I want to talk about too. I want to let all you all know that this is not just a ethnicity thing.
That's right.
It transcends all races. I'm going to give you some figures right now, business wise, that are going to open your eyes. We have over 30 million businesses in the United States of America. Out of these 30 million businesses, 98.2% of all of them are deemed small business. Now, a small business consists of 500 employees or less.
Mm-hmm.
So that means almost every business that all of us ride past every day, the ones we see, are small businesses. These small businesses employ 57 million Americans. Yet and still, 84.3% of these businesses cannot get funded from a bank or a lending institution. All right. 82% of the businesses that went out of business in the last 5 years, they cite the lack of working capital or access to working capital as the number one reason that they went out of business. So when you start to think along these lines, the banks are not your friends. The banks are not there for you. I always tell people, and they laugh when I say this, I say, listen, you ain't got enough B's in the bank to matter. And when I say B's, I mean billions. So when we know that the banks don't do it, and when we think about the different social programs we have out there, which are good, but they don't have unlimited funds. So they can't service everybody with grant money or other programs they have. You have to know how to maneuver and know where to go, unless you got a rich uncle or unless you got the money stuffed up under the mattress, which in most cases you don't have. You have to know how to maneuver. And this is why when we talk to people about business and we talk to them about using their revenue as a form of collateral to access business capital, a lot of them, they look sideways and they haven't heard this before. But this is a way that you can get your business funded. This is the way that the Clapp does a lot of funding. Also,
Is that
lines of credit.
what it's called? Merchant funding?
No, now MCA's is merchant cash advance goes strictly off of your credit card receivables.
Okay.
Alternative revenue-based capital encompasses all of that. And that capital is easier to access than from a bank or traditional lending institution. Most of the time a business only has to be in business for 4 months, be making at least $10,000 a month, not having excessive amounts of NSFs, be a registered business entity, and not be a criminal. And they can pretty much access some capital or a revolving line of credit if they're a stronger business. So when I say there's no shortage of money out there, there is no shortage of money. But it's almost like having a chessboard. You got to know which pieces to move, and you got to think 3, 4, 5 moves ahead to make sure that if this doesn't work out, then we can go ahead and switch gears and go to this and see if this works out. And I tell people all the time who are in business, I tell people all the time, who are investing in real estate. You fail your way to success. So many people are afraid to hear the word no. So many people are afraid to see that they're rejected for something, and they never try. Or if they try one time, they never try again.
Mm.
I don't know too many instant successes and instant millionaires in any business. All of us have had failures. If you're in real estate and you're just starting out, you're going to make some mistakes. You're going to have some deals that fall through. You're going to have some deals that cost you a little bit more money because you didn't do things right. But guess what? Now you know what to do and what not to do, and it makes the other ones much easier. It's the same thing in business. It's the same thing in life. And I think what gets us and what paralyzes us is the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of what somebody else will think.
Mm.
Meanwhile, you have others coming in our communities who have bought them up, and they've reduced our existence to neighborhoods.
Mm.
And now even that is a thing that is about to become extinct. So this, this go round, we may have lost in some instances this go round, but guess what we've learned? We've learned some very valuable lessons on what not to do. We cannot sit on our hands. We cannot depend on anybody else. And we got to start taking a hand up instead of expecting a hand out. And the way that we do this,
there you go. I was about to say, what is a hand up versus a handout? If you can explain.
well, a hand out. I'm gonna give you an example. Hand out. Let's talk about the Section 8 vouchers.
Mm.
I know I'm gonna step on some toes with this.
Let's do it.
But I have two good friends, and they go around, and they're both involved in real estate, and they actually go around and they do workshops for people with Section 8 vouchers. But the workshops are showing them how to move from being a renter
to a homeowner,
to being an owner.
Yep.
But most of the people who come to these workshops, they don't want to hear that. They just want to know when the voucher is coming out and when they can go ahead and get that rent. Is their rent still going to be $25, $50, $100 a month? They're not thinking about the ownership. See, it's conditioning, y'all.
The mindset.
That's a handout.
That's right.
Then we also have business owners who, you think grants are free money. Grants ain't free money. Grants have very detailed verbiage.
That's right.
That has to be adhered to, and every penny must be accounted for, and it must be going toward what it's bequeathed for. It is not free money. So we have to get out of our comfort zones and get a hand up. But the ones of us who are offering a hand up, because sometimes we're straightforward and to the point, because we say that, look, there are no hookups. You need X, Y, and Z to get what you need. A lot of people don't want to hear that. And it's a shame, because that's the way the world works. The world doesn't work on hookups. The world of commercial real estate does not work on hookups. It works on economic empowerment. The only way you'll start getting hookups is when you have economic power by owning the real estate in your community, by having the businesses in your community. Then you have a voice. Nobody listens to the kumbaya voice anymore. We shall overcome. Nobody listens to that. It's the dollar that is listened to. It's the economic empowerment that is listened to. And unfortunately, if you don't exhibit that, you don't have a voice, which means you don't have a seat at the table. Because while you're expecting handouts, everybody else has learned how to accept a hand up. And they're reaching back and also giving a hand up to those who will accept it.
Well, Clapp, you are a person who loves to give out resources, you're a wealth of knowledge, education, knowledge sharing. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the resources that you recommend, or the steps that people can take as they're thinking about their entrepreneurial journey and thinking about investing in real estate, owning some commercial land? So, what are some next steps do you think the person should really be going towards? I know you said go Google, but if you could go a little bit more concrete, I think that would be helpful.
Well, there are no shortage in your communities of meetings and of people who are talking about commercial real estate and talking about how to get business credit and things of this nature. So what I would start doing, if I'm really interested, I would start putting myself in the environments around those people who are doing what I want to do. Your friends that you play basketball with, your friends that you hang with, your friends that you go out with, they mean well, but most of the time they don't have the business acumen in that area to go ahead and to jumpstart you and get you where you need to be. So you got to make yourself uncomfortable by going to these kind of functions and seeing what goes on there. The second thing, and one of the most important things you can do, is get a mentor. Now, when I tell people to get a mentor, I got to explain what mentorship is. Mentorship is not hold your hand and take you through the maze. That's not what true mentorship is. Because once you identify somebody as a mentor, and once they see that you're serious and they pick up the mantle of being a mentor, you got to realize they got their business they have to run too, which means they may give you a set of tasks or things to work on. And you may meet with them every month. And they may ask you a question, or did you do thus, 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 thus? Because they gave you specific things to work on. And if your answer is no, well, you're kind of wasting their time. And most of the time they will cut you loose like a bad habit. So mentorship is not grabbing your hand and just walking through everything. Mentorship is, hey, oh, this is the way it's done. I can show you some things. Are you adhering to the directives and to the suggestions that I gave you? So getting a mentor or mentors is most imperative. None of us are totally self-made. All of us have had along the way some kind of mentor or mentors who have helped us get a little piece of everything that makes us up as business people so we can be successful. So yeah, make sure that you get a mentor.
I'm just gonna stop you right there. I'm just gonna say I love that you brought up the mentorship and what mentoring actually looks, feels, and sounds like. I have a program. It's an accountability buddy program where we're holding you accountable for the things that you say that you're going to do. And I think that's really what you're saying, that the mentor is there to hold you accountable for the things that you're trying to do. So if you're looking to join the accountability buddy program, just DM me. This is not what this was about, but since it came up, I just wanted to just throw it out there that it is important. And no matter how successful you are, everybody has a coach. Everybody has a mentor. If you think about our professional athletes, what do they all have? They all have coaches. They all have a team of folks around them that continue to help them show, improve, and improve their practice. And so there's nothing wrong at any level, any stage, to make sure that you get a mentor.
And next I would also say, be willing to joint venture. Joint ventures help you learn, because there's an adage: would you rather have a little bit of something or none of nothing? Now, when you joint venture with people, they're coming on because maybe they have more expertise than you. Maybe they have more clout than you. However, you need that to be able to get your foot in the door. So when you joint venture, you're going to give up a little bit of the profit. You may give up the lion's share of the profit, but at least you've gotten in. And now you see how it works. So you joint venture. You learn the game by getting on the field with somebody who knows the game. And you do that, you learn, and then you go out and you start doing deals. You start you don't have to start big. Buy something small. Buy a small commercial building. Look around your community for buildings that may be a little dilapidated. If they're dilapidated, that's a chance that they're in distress. It's a chance that maybe nobody wants it anymore. And you can get it. And not only can you get it, you can actually use something called CDC money, if it's in one of those zones, that they will give you to fix up the building because they want to revitalize the neighborhoods.
That's right.
So these are steps that you can take to get yourself in the door with commercial real estate. But I got to tell you, like anything else, you can have all the theory, but until you actually get on the field and you do it, until you try to apply for it, until you have some failures and a few successes, you'll never learn this game. And you can't be scared. Like they say, don't be scared. Don't be scared. Go out there and just do it. And you don't have to start in your community. You can start in some other communities that may be smaller. So people won't see you when you mess up. but, in all seriousness, though, you do have to go ahead. You have to actually be strategic and be intentional. I have a good friend, Cheryl King Weathers, and she's in real estate and mortgages, and her thing is always being intentional. So you have to be intentional. And then if you're a business, I will tell you from the start, most businesses, they start out self-funding with their own credit. They don't know about business credit. But what I would tell any business owner to do, who's an existing business owner and who's a business owner just starting out, learn about business credit. Learn about how it differs from the personal credit.
That's right.
And then that makes it that much easier to maybe get the funds that you need for your business to be successful. So you don't have to worry about being one of those 82% whose business failed in 5 years because they have a lack of access to capital.
You touched upon this a little bit, which is the CRCs, the CRAs, the revitalization communities, the revitalization monies that are out there, again, around policy. I just want to emphasize that y'all can go to your governmental websites. I mean, all of this lives as public knowledge. They cannot hide this information. It is public knowledge. You can go to your local municipality, you can go to your town website and find out what kind of commercial lending grants, commercial lending programs they have, what kind of revitalization funds they have, what are they looking for, understand what they've decided as a community is important. And if you do live in that community, make sure you go to your town hall meeting so that you can talk about things that are important to you as well, so that you can have a real voice and a real power within your community. But as Clapp said, if you don't have ownership, you're not going to be a driving voice and a driving factor in the community. So really start thinking about how you can go ahead and use some of your monies, your strategic thinking around acquiring commercial real estate, especially as another way to earn revenue. We touched upon this kind of in the beginning when you mentioned rent roll. But we actually get into how this particular thing can also be a revenue driver for your business.
Yeah, and you know what? Also, too, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told one of my cohorts up in Melbourne, Florida. He called me up. He does these things with corrugated boxes. He makes them, and he does pretty good. I'm like, I didn't know cardboard boxes and corrugated boxes paid like that. I was like, oh my goodness. But he's looking for a facility to rent. So I said, listen, I pass through Melbourne all the time. It's being built up as other places are in Florida. Why not look for a building to buy? Because I saw a lot of different warehouse areas, a lot of different strip malls, and they were half occupied. Now, when you talk about the income can be earned, I want you all to think about this. You have a business and you think about, okay, I'm going to get a piece of commercial real estate. And let's see that you see an area, maybe a small warehouse area or maybe a strip mall. And let's say that strip mall or small warehouse area has 10 units or 10 bays. And 6 out of the 10 have somebody in them renting. And you have 3 others that you can rent out because you're going to use one space for your business.
That's right.
So now you'd have 9 different rents coming from different businesses. And the rents will be determined by the size of that commercial space in square feet. So now you have these rents coming in that are actually paying for a building that you have your business located in for free. And they come in month after month after month after month. And this is the reason why it will be easier for you to get commercial funding and to get some kind of loan or some kind of financing, because you have a collateralized piece of property that produces revenue like clockwork on the business front.
And when I hear you say that, Clapp, and there's also a question in the comments, I'm going to get there in a second, but when I hear you say that, I'm thinking to myself, I hope people are having some light bulb moments right now and thinking, here's the rent that I pay for this shop that I have, for this building, for this location,
Mhm.
whether it's a workspace, whether it's your actual brick and mortar business, and you're paying XYZ, let's just say $1,000. And I know that's probably really low, but let's just say you're paying $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 every year that you could A, be saving, B, be making money on. So now there's even more revenue there. And now it gives your business value, because if you own that commercial real estate in your business, then it actually becomes an asset of the business, and it gives value, more value to the business, which of course is also added to your personal net worth as one of the owners of that particular business. So if you just think about that, you've given away, instead of giving away $12,000, and this is really lowballing, instead of
Really,
giving,
that's really low ball. I
I just,
mean,
I just want to do some easy
I
math.
mean, hey, if I could put me in the game, coach, if I could find that low, but yeah, that is really low balling. I mean, from what we've been seeing, the average commercial space, and we're talking about a small one, the average commercial space in monthly rent, they're paying $5,000.
Hmm.
That's on average.
On average. So that's about
Yeah,
$60,000 a
yeah.
year.
So I mean, it's according to the size, and that money's coming in. And plus, we didn't even talk about the tax benefits you get and the tax break you get for
Okay,
being a
let's talk about
commercial
it.
real
I
estate
think
owner.
it's important too. Tax benefit, and I want to talk about this for a second because we don't understand this as a wealth strategy. And we mentioned it. We talked about having good debt, but good debt also allows you to do something around lowering your tax liability.
Mhm.
Taxes are another way of um, building wealth in this country and understanding the tax code and the
Yeah,
tax systems, which is why having a business is much better for you tax wise than just being a regular employee who has to, a personal entity
exactly,
to go through
exactly.
and go through the tax code. So let's touch upon that for a second too, because I think this is important. And then when we finish there, so you know where I want to end up, is how do we also protect these assets? You mentioned the woman whose property is now in foreclosure,
Yeah,
parents' business. And they lost that basically due to I'm assuming medical debt or medical things that have
yeah,
happened. And you talked
yeah,
about your own story and really understanding that. I'm not saying you have to go through your story,
yeah,
but
yeah.
how do we talk about protecting these assets once we actually have them, so that we don't go through some of the trials and tribulations that we have seen have happened to us generationally, losing properties, losing our ownership stake in our communities. But first, let's touch upon the tax piece, and then how do we make sure that we shore up those assets. And then I will go. I see there's questions in the comments, so then I will
Mhm.
also ask those questions as well.
The thing about it, like I said earlier, all of us have had mentors, but then all of us who are building wealth and trying to build wealth, you got to have a good team around you. And there are certain important pieces that you have to have on your team, and you have to be willing to pay for these pieces. And when you start talking about keeping your assets and knowing the tax code, you do not skimp on getting a good tax attorney.
Hmm.
Always have somebody who understands the game. Have that piece in place. Know the loopholes. They know the loopholes. They can teach you the loopholes. Pay them well. They are worth more than what you are going to pay them. Trust and believe. All these millionaires and billionaires you see, oh, they got their tax attorneys on speed dial
Okay.
because they know have a good accountant, because you want to know what's happening to the penny in your business or with your commercial real estate portfolio. Have a good real estate person that understands commercial real estate and can help you find sweetheart deals. And then have a plethora of different resources that you can go to for funding financial, so you don't have to self fund. Always use OPM, other people's money.
I know that's right. Listen, I don't know if reparations will ever come back to this country, but I tell people our reparations is using other people's money. is
That
using
is.
those programs, seeing what's out there. That money
Mhm.
is our money. Go use it. Go use it.
It
So,
is, but yeah, when you talk about protecting your assets, I mean, you got to have the people in place because it's not like you can just go on QuickBooks and do this, y'all. This is a lot more detailed than that. So surround yourself with the professionals in those niches. You concentrate on what you do good, which is going out, working your business, and acquiring the commercial real estate.
I love that. So I'm just going to emphasize, so I think it's super important that you have a great tax attorney, that you have an amazing accountant, that you have someone who understands commercial real estate, investing, etc. And you don't do any of this work in silo. And so it's important to know the resources, have those resources, but having your team of professionals is super, super, super important for your success, and for the success of our communities. There are a couple of questions, so I'm going to
Okay.
pop them up to see if you can see them, and I'm also going to read them. Courtney wants to know, are you familiar with the zoning changes of commercial buildings to residential because of the issues around affordable housing?
Well, in a lot of communities, you do have different zoning that's going on, and you don't have to be familiar with this per se, but you have to have access to somebody who's familiar with it. So then you'll know. So as far as me personally, no, I'm not familiar with all of the issues. However, I do have people in my camp who know it backwards and forwards, and I can pick up the phone and say, "Hey, what's going on with this?" And they can run it down to me. So then that way, I'm familiar.
I love that. So you go to your team, you go to your team of experts. So that makes
You
sense.
go to your team. It's
Um,
essentially the same concept.
I think,
Sometimes
Courtney,
concept.
this is in regards to when we were talking about the hypothetical, if you were buying, or actually, we were talking to your friend in Melbourne about
Mhm.
buying a facility and potentially having a facility that already have a rent roll. I guess Courtney's question is this the same sort of concept when you're buying a multifamily that has occupants in it already?
Absolutely. And the thing about multifamily, Courtney, is this: is they look at the certain price they want per door. So that means if you're buying a multifamily property, let's say maybe a small apartment building with maybe 40 units, they want to see an average value between $35,000 and $55,000 minimum per door.
Mm.
So that's what they're looking. So it's absolutely the same thing. It's just the terminology is different. When it is mixed use property or multifamily property, they want to know, okay, how much is it worth per door? And that's the way they determine what the value is of those properties.
We talked a little, I didn't get here. In one of my last shows, we talked about LTVs, right? In terms of how much money you could borrow, how much the down payment would typically be. Can you just give us a general breakdown when you're thinking about commercial real
Yeah,
estate,
absolutely.
LTV? Yeah.
Absolutely. COVID changed a lot, y'all. COVID made a lot of lenders very skittish. And before COVID came, we were seeing the LTVs for purchases going up to like 85%,
Wow.
which was great for commercial property. COVID hit, they dropped all the way down to 65% LTV.
Yeah.
Now they have been on the rise, and it's in between 70 and 75% LTV. Now, when you talk about refinance, a lot of times it's going to be between 60 and 65% LTV. Now, you do have some programs out there that are cash out refis, no income, no asset, where they'll go all the way up to 97% LTV. But I always tell my clients to err on the side of caution. Always think 70% LTV for purchase, 60% LTV for the refis.
Right.
And then condition yourself to saying, okay, I got to come to the table with at least 30 to 35%
Gotcha.
down payment. Now, you may not have to use that because depending on where you're buying this commercial property, depending on the zoning, depending on what they want to do with the area, you may have access to money to cover that shortfall from your local governments, from your state governments to revitalize the communities.
That's right.
I mean, they got something right now they call Main Street America. Now, every community isn't a part of that, but for the communities that are a part of that, it's funding that's bequeathed for that can be gotten for the purposes that you're talking about. But always think I need to come to the table with 30 to 35%.
I love that. And I'm just going to, because I like to talk in numbers and maybe people don't know what we're talking about necessarily. But we're looking at a property, and I know this is low. I'm just going to throw it out because I like easy math. If a property is worth $100,000, the idea is if it's commercial property, you can get a loan for that property that is between 60%, so that's 60 up to 60,000, or 70%, which is up to 70,000, meaning that you have to figure out how to put in the $30,000 or $40,000 in order to cover the purchase of the property. But as Clapp said, there are multiple programs that governments have to help you purchase those commercial real estate property, and a lot of that actually is around the down payment structure. So go ahead, make sure you go to your town's municipality, go to the federal government, look at what is available for commercial funding and commercial financing as it relates. So as much as you can, as Clapp says, use other people's funding.
And you know what? Something else I want to give you an example about too. This just happened earlier this week. Is that we talked about that Creole grant, right?
Yeah.
So I had somebody contact me. They actually got the Creole grant. They got $400,000 from the Creole grant, right? And they are looking to purchase these two office buildings. They need $700,000, so they're coming to me for $300,000. So guess what? It's looking pretty good because they already have the money from the Creole grant.
That's right.
And they had actually gone to a seminar that I had done. And I told them, I said, listen, my part of the Creole grant is when you get it, you're going to have a shortfall most of the time. My part in it is being able to provide access to the additional capital that you may need to make the deal happen. And lo and behold, somebody listened and they're coming there and they went online. They did what they had to do. I got an alert, and it's a possibility maybe before the middle of October, they will have what they need to go ahead and to secure these buildings, which are going to be income producing.
Which are income producing buildings. So now we have an example of not only just sharing the knowledge, someone applying that knowledge, using it, and then being able to acquire some commercial property. That is amazing, Clapp. I appreciate. This is why I have Clapp on here. This is why I'm doing these Wednesday weekly virtual meetings for Housing for All, so that you all can get these resources. We want to share this knowledge. We want to empower you. We talked about economic empowerment. Knowledge is empowerment. This is why we are doing this work. Clapp, thank you so much for being here. Is there anything that you want to say before we end?
You know what? The thing about it, even though we were on an hour, we kind of touched on a multiplicity of things and gave you a Cliff Note versions. So what I'm in the process of doing is actually getting some educational PowerPoint presentations out there and to start teaching on this regularly. So commercial business owners and also commercial real estate developers or potential investors will know what's out there and will know step by step how to go through this. So that's in the works, and that's coming because I see there's a need for it in the marketplace, because there's a lot of us, and I'm so happy to see this, who are getting curious now about what we need, because we see what is going on across the United States with our communities. And we know now that it is real and displacement is inevitable unless we get our stuff together.
Displacement is inevitable unless we get our stuff together. Clapp, that is a great line for us to end on. Thank you again so much for being here, my brother. We are waiting with bated breath to see when those classes come out. Please let us know. I want to make sure that the website is in our show notes, and so people can contact you from the website. Is that correct, Clapp?
That is correct.
Awesome.
That is
And
correct.
then please, everyone, if you're enjoying these weekly Wednesday virtual housing meetings, if you're getting resources, please go to our housingforallcampaign.org and donate. We do this off the strength of love and knowledge sharing, but it takes work. So we would appreciate some in-kind love and donations. Really appreciate you all for being on. And then next week, we'll be back again where we're talking about securing your rights to housing and how to protect yourself from a housing perspective. So really excited. Again, Clapp, appreciate you. And
Always appreciate you, KT.
thank you. Thank you so much. And so stay tuned till next week, Wednesday, noon Eastern time. Peace out,
Okay.
everyone.
Peace out.